Welcome to another episode of Talking About Reality? Or is this an episode of The Nonsenses? Welcome to a conversation between myself and Sanjana Singh. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. I thought we might talk about reality tonight. Wait.
Yeah.
What is it? Where is it nighttime? No, it's probably
No,
early morning.
it's very early morning. It's not very early morning. It's like 8:49 a.m. in the morning. I haven't slept all night, so it feels like,
You pulled what is commonly referred to as an all-nighter.
Yes.
And I am it's not even midnight. But it's
Polar opposites. Polar opposites.
Are you in a full-fledged hypnagogic state? Like, are you like in that thing? The place
I'm very, very awake.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I've been having moments where I know that I could fall, like upon it being appropriate and being laid down properly, that I could fall asleep within moments, and having that like dreaming awake stuff. I've been having really intense experiences with that lately, where it's almost like I can start to see the overcast, like the overlaying of a dream screen over my waking open eyes.
Wow, that's interesting. Like expand more on that.
Okay, so I'll be awake, and this is like not even intensive sleep deprivation, just like where it's like where the sleep is starting to happen, and I feel like it's relevant to say that I have this sleep paralysis thing where what is kind of the opposite is happening, where my brain is going to sleep. Wait, hold on. The sleep paralysis is that my body is paralyzed, brain
But you
not yet
awake.
sleeping,
Yeah.
and then hallucinations
Yes.
happen. And a meta awareness of that's not an actual demon. I'm not getting sexually molested by Hitler right now. It's just my consciousness doing this thing. But I've had and that's light. That's light of like what happens in sleep paralysis. Like it gets bad. It's the worst thing that I could possibly. It's whatever would be most horrifying for me happening.
Oh, me too. Me too. I absolutely. It just destroys my sense of being for a day or two.
Yeah,
Thinking about it. Yeah.
it's bad. But it's okay. So on a lighter note, this thing where I'm like, I'm ready to go to bed by, and I'm very, very aware of it. And there's this sheen of dreamy stuff starting to happen. Some of the things will be like in a meta awareness of like, this shit where like, if I break the vase is broken, or this like, in order to get clean, I would have to shower. Reality, physical, objective world stuff. I'm so excited to take off that tight shoe and be in the place where I'm just flying, and things will even start like, yeah, it's wild. What the fuck is the difference between these two worlds? I think dialing that in, what's the difference between dreaming and being awake? That's probably how you have the best physical objectivity waking world and dream world, is when you can really know the difference so you can optimize both.
So you mean dreaming and awakening being two distinct things, but somehow their congruence uh, assimilates this objective. What word did you use after objective?
Physical?
Objective physical presence, let's say. Is that what you're saying? That dreaming and awakening are two distinct things, but because of their congruence, it allows for an objective physical presence of some sort.
Well, it's like maybe
That's very abstract, by the way.
maybe the best human life is to be Whee! I get to dream again. Woo! Oh my God, I'm going to bed. Great, great, great. Because the best that is when I really give it my all in my waking hours, to the point where I fucking, oh, you're allowed to sleep now? Sure, well, I'm gonna. And and the most depressive, most shitty, and most tragic experience that I've experienced is when I don't use my opportunity to interface with objectivity land. When I don't use it, and very easy ways of saying this is you're not exercising, though. Exercising, like especially like lifting weights, like doing those sort of things, is like there's like you could build something, you could actually do something. I think about when I would go to the gym, I would always like see people on like treadmills and doing things, and I was just like, this should be a fucking power plant. Like there's all these people who want to be like doing kinetic energy stuff. Why can't this all be hooked up to something?
A powerhouse.
But the best days and the best dream sleep experiences are from, okay, I'm awake, I'm here. It's always better if you volunteer for your strenuous moments. Voluntarily step up to stressed, and like Wim Hof breathing in the cold. I just got this like new inflatable little ice bath. I'm going to start taking daily ice baths. And when I say that, I say that with not a lot of confidence in my voice. I'm going to say that more. I'm going to start taking daily ice baths. God damn it. And doing the breathing, because it's like so, when you're doing the breathing, it's always like, it's so hard to get yourself to do it, but it's so fucking rewarding. And it is the best waking high, because no drugs compare to what sleeping and dreaming is. You can literally fly. I've been having experiences in my somewhat lucid dreams. It's weird because it's not, when it's fully lucid, I tend to wake up. That's the thing that I'm still, I don't know if that's a spell I should stop casting, but usually when I get fully lucid, I'm like, oh my God, I can do anything. That's when I wake up. But I've been having moments now. This is really trippy. Dream characters. I'm noticing that I make them, and how I make them. That I make them to, that I make a certain dream character to kind of act out a particular neurosis or fantasy, but I tend to remember the neurosis ones. Like I created a dream character the other night, and I don't remember the particulars, but I remember very particularly waking up and being like, oh my God, that guy doesn't exist. But that guy was such a fucking, my idea of a fucking dick. That guy was a douchebag. And he was supposed to be this competitive male, like, wants to bully me douchebag. And he's not real in this dream.
I feel like even I make characters. So one of the ways I have severe insomnia, and one of the ways I try to go to sleep without any pharmacological aid is that I would close my eyes and I would start imagining a particular situation which probably wouldn't happen in real life. And I would either use real life characters or sometimes make them up. And I would just think about it, and but in a very comfortable position. The setting is good basically, and for some reason after 15 minutes of that, I'm sleeping. But when I wake up, I don't, unless, so when you're smoking weed, you don't get dreams. And as soon as you stop smoking weed, the dreams come back.
Lion's mane
So,
tincture is supposed to help with that, and people say it does. Taking lion's mane mushroom tincture before bed.
oh, I take it as a what do you call them? Natural nootropic. Yeah,
Nootropic.
yeah.
But have you been taking it as a tincture, like before bed, and having?
Nah, only magnesium I tried. And then there was something else as
We'll
well.
give it a try. See if your dreams come back.
No, my dreams are back since I quit. Smoking and shit like that. It's back.
It's wild.
It's absolutely wild, like, and it's vivid. And so you remember your dreams. So when you wake up, there's a 2 to 3, maybe sometimes 5 minutes just after you wake up, that you are able to really remember the dream, um, not, if not perfectly, then vividly. And after that, the your memory basically erases some of those dream elements. But when I would like go to sleep with making these characters and everything, and I would wake up, I wouldn't remember the dream. It's as if I smoked weed and wake up, and I don't know, I just slept. So weird, so bizarre.
It's extremely bizarre. This world is extremely bizarre. The fourth season of Stranger Things was so uh, uncannily compelling to me. It hit so many. It hit in so many places. Like, and as I'm watching, I'm like, well, in my idea of what reality is, it would make sense that there would be cinema that is sort of a grimoire, like psycho spiritually, a map of sorts, but that it be the number one thing and on the streaming thing, that's something to contend with. Like, I remember when I first saw the first Lego movie, and I was like, this is really trippy, because this is like the lesson of DMT being like given to that, like that it's all this puzzle, and that there's somebody who's super excited to build the spaceship. There's somebody who's super excited to be every component of what it would need to. But then also the whole the Oedipus boulder running up that hill, rolling back down that hill thing. That's been a big theme in my life and observations lately, of that we're like trying to fix things, optimize things, and make things better, and just to know that it's just, no matter what, it's all gonna come apart. But you don't want to be a nihilist. You don't want to be just like, fuck it all. Let's see how bad it gets. Like, but that also that there is this futility to the running up of that hill. But also there's something beautiful, and perhaps the definition of love is like that, at least socially, in terms of like being as present and helpful as I can in the experiences of those that I love. Like, I will continue to keep running up this hill. And it's good. I'm really glad that there's people in my life who aren't meta, who aren't like, you know, talking about it as it's a dream. I sometimes am frustrated with that. That I was like, and it's particularly my like mother, father, sister. My mother, father, and sister are not people that I would be like, well, this is all like, there's no that. It's like, this is reality, and this is our lives. And when I go to, and I wish to have the maximum, like, or the best relationship I can with these humans who are not meta, not looking at it from a dissociated, not even necessarily dissociated. I mean, I don't have to be dissociated to be looking at it sometimes as like this. You just have to be a character in the thing. I don't know if I'm being not understandable, but you got your friends, like you're a friend that I could talk about it. Like, we talk about what is reality. With like, I have at least 3 people in my life that are very dear to me, that I know that it's not what is hey, how's your reality? What's this whole reality thing? It's like, you're just in the story. And maybe that's good for me. Maybe that keeps me grounded in reality. Because if I had no one that I had to give fucks about, who like doesn't talk about and experience things in this way, maybe I'd go a tad too insane.
Reality is a hallucination.
So it
We live
seems.
in a dream world.
We live in a
So
dream.
you know how dreams seem kind of real. because the characters are there, the buildings are there. There are, of course, some unreality unreal aspects of the dream, but there are some really real aspects of the dream, and that makes you wonder what is the actual distinct like differentiation between the dream world and the actual world. Now imagine you go to you go to a river, right? And you look at the water, and it's beautiful. There's sunshine, whatever. It's just a beautiful environment. Then you see that, then you think that this water in front of me is H2O. It's made of atoms and molecules and stuff like that. So why is it that I'm not seeing the actual physical apparent reality? Why am I seeing this beautiful, as if someone just painted over the physical reality thing? That proves to a certain extent, I mean, I wouldn't say prove, but that is a really, really, really good hypothesis that the world that we live in, the reality that we experience, according to Anil Seth, it's a hallucination. According to Yosha Bach, it's a dream world. And there's I think Eric also has something like that, but I'm not really sure.
Like Weinstein.
Yeah, Weinstein. I'm not really sure whether he actually came up with it or something like that. But there's a lot of philosophers back from the phenomenological camp, phenomenological being the study of experience. So they say that there's a distinct physical reality. They also say the same thing, which Yosha and Anil are saying from a neuroscientific and a computationalistic perspective. They're also saying the same thing from a phenomenological perspective, that we do have an unaccessible physical reality, which we cannot access. And therefore, what we are able to access is either a hallucination, is either a dream world, is either some sort of a painted over physical reality kind of situation where you're just making the physical
Mhm.
apparent world seem as if it's beautiful. You
Mhm.
know, it's as if you're putting a layer onto it. It's
Yeah,
as if
it
you're
fills in
painting
the
a wall.
blanks. But what I'm certain of, even though I'm a total layman in terms of neuroscience, but what is very, very clear to me is that it fills there. You will never open your waking eyes and see like the screen where there's like a file not loaded yet. You'll never see
Mhm.
that. It fills it in. It's always going to fill everything in. And people who don't philosophize or look into geopolitics or geomancy or geo anything have a worldview that may be stunted from the perception of somebody looking at them and what they think and looking at what a lot of us have access to now, which is like the world as it's happening. But a human fills in the blanks. Like, and so before people knew that this was a big fucking sphere with lots of little doodads running around on it, your world was the world that you saw. And I really think that it wasn't true that the world was flat, but people dreamt, people experienced a world that you could fall off of and that had, serpents in the water and shit. What there are those? There's fucking sea monsters. Those are for realsies. They're not quite as dramatic.
It's as if you make a conscious observation, which is that I'm in the sea, I have a boat, I see straight, and all I see is this. It's not this. And that makes me think that, okay, maybe we just keep going ahead, and you keep going ahead, and it's still static, it's not dynamic. And then this conscious observation becomes an unconscious belief, and this unconscious belief leads to flat earth society, literally. you know yeah.
Hey, maybe it's what if somebody's having a happier reality when their reality is a tiny, narrow slice of real, as we say, real reality with a bunch of blanks being filled in ridiculous ways. You know, I see some people carrying on quite well with an understanding of what the world is that isn't like true, but it's working for them. But have you ever seen when somebody hits a hard brick wall of reality? I've been in
Oh
the
yeah,
I've been in the presence of someone when they have to
I've
realize
done that.
you've hit the wall of reality.
Yeah, whenever I get super frustrated, like absolutely out of it, um, I punch the fucking wall, and of course I get the injuries and stuff like that. Yeah, but
Well,
I know it's a violent act, but it's not directed towards people around me. It's just my frustration extending itself onto something that feels as if, okay, if I hit this wall, maybe this stream of frustration can finally flow through it, and I'll of course still be frustrated, but maybe not to that extent. Not to that extent that I want to keep on going punching walls and stuff like that.
yeah. Well, having a fucking panic attack, which I did not too long ago, that like really humbles me of like, well, you don't want to do that. You don't want to have be in a feedback loop of your own neurosis to the point where it's just echoing doom because it's so bad. And it's and then you can see, you can be like, okay, well, you're capable of that. Like back to the sleep paralysis thing. My nightmares, sleep paralysis being different from nightmares, but it's like a half awake nightmare, but just my full fledged nightmares, like some of the when I'm dreaming terror, it's bad. It's impressively scary, and it's all me. It's all me. There's no, and also back to your, you fill in the blanks of your reality. I know a lot of people. I'm close with a lot of people who really believe in there's bad spirits and there's good ones and there's good entities, and you want those on your side. You want to be able to call those in when the bad ones are flaring up. Because if you get enough of the good ones on your side and with you, when the bad ones, and then it's like, hey, I don't want to make anything scarier for anyone, but it's all here all the time. It's always all here all the time. There's no place, there's no physical in physical reality. There's that. You can go away from where the volcano is happening. You can get out of the ocean where the scary sea monsters are. You can get out of the fucking woods when, like, I live in Michigan and it's the summer now, and like people
Mhm.
say they love summer, the bugs and the humidity. Like when the bugs in the deep woods now, to spend 10 minutes standing with flesh exposed in the forests of Michigan right now, hellacious. The deer flies. There's mosquitoes that suck, and there's particularly vicious mosquitoes. I feel like there's like I went to this festival once. It was called Land of Nod. That had financial problems. It stormed, and the mosquitoes were so bad. It's like there were fucking monster mosquitoes that were pushing by the regular fucking like beta mosquitoes to get to you. And I remember seeing people just being devoured. I remember seeing everyone's flesh was so covered in these things. And a friend of mine has the type of blood that the mosquitoes aren't attracted to, and she's just not getting bit at all. She was just so pristine.
It's a blood type.
There's a blood there. I guess there's some people that don't get bit by mosquitoes.
Lucky.
It's wild.
Here in India, you live with mosquitoes, you live with flies, you live with, uh, I don't know how to say that in English exactly, but there's this thing called chipkali, which is like this brownish, has like a small face and like small legs and tail and stuff like that. Whatever. It's in every Indian home. And it's not that, we don't get, like, we don't get the pesticides and stuff like that. We don't do that. It's just they are somehow always there. And these fucking mosquitoes, dude, I hate them so
I
much.
hate them. I want to do a genocide.
I have like these, what do you call them, mosquito repellent uh, uh, sprays and stuff like that I always do at night, because I just hate the mosquito. And especially when the mosquito comes near your ear and
Ah,
starts like, zzz, it's like I just lose my shit, and that's why I have to do all the repellent thing, but somehow it's always there. Somehow they just come, dude. It's fucking weird.
they're fucked. It's so fucked that they exist. Can we just calculate what the ecological damage would be from removing them and remove them from this earth? They're so fucked. It's so fucked up that they exist.
I
They're
know.
these fucking vampiric with this fucking syringe snout.
Hmm.
Oh God. I hate them. They're so
Same can be said about cockroaches and flies and I don't know, even like crazy like red ants that actually can bite you.
those
Um,
are the red ant a red ant bite is like 2 weeks of your life.
oh yeah, oh yeah, and bees, so honeybees, if they bite you, holy shit, it's
Honeybees?
like honeybees, the bees that produce honey.
Their bites are bad? I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, they so when um if there's a bunch of honeybees here, right? And I try to attack them in any way,
Why?
so they would
Why would you?
attack. l- Let's just a hypothetical situation. Either I'm just doing like this just to kind of like push them away or something like that. One of them, if they feel threatened, can come and bite you, and as soon as they bite you, they die. But that
Are you
bite,
saying sting? Sting?
yeah, sting. They sting you and they die
Yeah,
right
because
after
there's this bone that's attached to their whole shit.
that.
And
And
yeah,
that sting is for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. It's gonna be bad.
it's a kamikaze. This thing fucking sacrificed itself to fuck you up a little bit. Malicious insectoids. Malicious, and then so it's looking like we're getting pretty admittant about there being life out there, right? Like, how's that?
Extraterrestrial life.
Yeah, it seems like there's not smart people that seems like smart people seem to be in agreement. Yeah, for sure. It's just
I am too. I am too. Not that I'm a smart person, but I think so. When Pentagon in 2020 April released these images of dark objects in the sky, which are not earthly technology, or seems like it's spherical. It doesn't seem like it's from Earth, and they released it, Pentagon, which was very brilliant, honestly, during the fucking pandemic, doing that because it didn't make much noise. It didn't make much noise. And imagine if that happens right now, people would go crazy. They're like, "Oh my God, there's aliens!" But Pentagon, they did a brilliant job with not causing panic, and releasing it out there, so it's out there, so they don't get questioned anymore. But no, Pentagon released those images, and after that, people started talking about unidentified aerial phenomena, UAPs, then UFO sightings, and how plausible is that. Then that guy, what was that guy, Bob Lazar, his account of encountering some dark alien technology. All of these things are now being heavily debated, and mostly because of those Pentagon evidences, I would say. So yeah, there's a lot of debate going on, extraterrestrial life. And honestly, like the way I think about it is like we can't be the only, like only living, you know, breathing, whatever, existing ecosphere, in this entire universe. And the entire universe isn't limited to solar system. It goes way beyond that. It's, there's a physics argument that, it's infinite. Then some people say that it has to have some sort of a limit. But I think it is infinite, and I'm pretty sure there's good mathematical, evaluation of the same, proving the same. And I genuinely think that if we are able to go beyond the solar system, we might as well just find something unique. Maybe it's not sentience, maybe it's not consciousness. The very term alien means that it is something which is incomprehensible.
Mm.
So, of course, it doesn't have to be that I exit the solar system and I see a human, or almost like a human person. No,
Humanoid, yeah.
it could be literally anything.
Yeah.
Literally anything.
These things that exist, that buzz around and swim about in our oceans, are alien as fuck. You know, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want to be weirder than that? That's the big crazy thing, I think, is that there's like fucking miraculous, magical, material shit going on this very planet that we're on. You ever watch Blue Planet, Planet Earth, and stuff like that? It's just like fucking amazing. And we're just like, it's just Tuesday. Fuck. What am I gonna do with myself? And back to reality being a dream, it's like when you're saying about like we can't be the only ones, it's like, well, does that make sense to your, like, you're filling in the blanks of reality? Does it make sense that that all observable space is just the backdrop so that we can have this? Or are there infinite realms? And like this, like, some of the things that I hear about aliens that are clearly human imagination stuff is, sorry not to offend anybody who's into like the Galactic Federation and stuff like that, but like the idea that we've been being observed all this time, and they're not going to let us fuck it up too bad, but
Mm-hmm.
they're noticing now that we actually have the means to, destroy the world, and that would actually be bad for everyone. So they're not going to let that happen. But this seems like you're trying to cushion your reality with a, with some plan C, which is that oh, don't worry, the aliens will save us, sort of thing. But then also, if you want to do that, if like, and I used to be one who would say, like, of course they're benevolent. If they can get here, they're benevolent, because this is what I used to say. I'm not saying this necessarily now. This is very cloud flowery, rose tinted glasses. But in order to get to the point where you can achieve interstellar travel, you would have to end war on your planet. You would have to stop the thing that the precipice that we're at right now is like, are we going to have planetary suicide? Or are we going to transcend that in some way? Because we're never going to get to the point where we can have vessels that are going to Mars, let alone fucking out of this solar system. If we're still fucking around shooting shit at each other, we're putting all of our resources and a lot of our brain power is going towards the throwing shit at each other and maybe ending the world, like, so how the fuck are we supposed to get off this planet and get like, the real good shit technology wise, if we're spending all of our mental real estate and all of our like human resources? We got our best people working on how to fuck shit up, so it
You
seems.
know what's crazy? Talking about what were we talking about? Like, you said something before that kind of sparked a thought in my head.
You're really narrowing it down.
In the 60s, yes. So Aldous Huxley, back in the 60s, predicted a lot of things that are very, very relevant in the human condition today. And one of it, which is pretty obvious, is overpopulation. The other is global warming. And keep in mind that it's 1950s, and he's being, you know, I'll show it to you. Wait. So Aldous Huxley wrote these two books. This is the Doors of Perception, the first book written on mescaline, which was heavily distributed in 1953. 1953. And brilliant book about experience and just phenomenological experience of a psychedelic. And then this book right here, Brave New World, is where this guy, so he was a writer, he was a novelist as well, and he wrote this novel in 2050. So he, it's very futuristic, what is happening in the future, what is going to happen in the future, how crazy is the future going to be. And man, he gets so many things right. So many things. There was something that you said before that kind of clicked this to me, but if you keep on going, maybe it's going to come back and then I'll be able to relate to it. But it kind of really reminded me of Huxley for some reason.
That we have to, well, we that what I was on before is that in order for it, that I used to assume that aliens able to reach us physically would have to be benevolent, because in order for them to get to the point where they were technologically or psycho-spiritually, magically, whatever the fuck, capable of getting themselves here, they would have to get through the precipice that we're at now, where we're actually seem to be confronted with, are we going to annihilate ourselves in the stupidest way, like annihilate each other, all of us, because one tribe wants more of the goodies, or wants like or safety in the name of defense, like get back or I'll kill us all, like in order, we have to protect ourselves, and I'm willing to wipe out all of this, and that it very much seems like it is, that there's people who, when I listen to the people who are most aware of the chessboard, like there's my brain does this thing where in order to explain anything I have to, so I've a close.
But let me get back to the point of quickly, like, so you talked about the interplanetary stuff, right? So
Yeah.
that's why I brought up Huxley, because Huxley in 50s wrote about how in the future we are going to become interplanetary, that we're actually going to go to Mars. He literally said we're going to Mars. And it's crazy because at that time when you were reading Brave New World or any of his Berkeley lectures, you're just like, how, how, like, we've just landed on the moon, like, it's not happening. Years and years later, it's happening. So this is the reason why I would say that, even you and like people listening, whatever, like Aldous Huxley's Brave New World is something that everyone should read and be astonished of, because it's not only interplanetary stuff and overpopulation and global warming. It's much more beyond that. It's also the evilest thing that man can do.
Wait, specifically Brave New World?
Yeah, in the Brave New World, and also in his Berkeley lectures.
You're saying because that seems like there's some trends that seem we're heading in that direction?
We are heading in that direction. This is the Brave New World.
What? Well, not quite yet.
Not fully, but we're getting there. Imagine like Elon Musk that I want to go to Mars a few years ago, let's say. This guy was like 1953, maybe, I don't know. I think this was written way before 1950s as well. This guy is just like, yeah, we're going to go to Mars. We're going to become interplanetary. We're going to destroy most of the planets. We're going to overpopulate all of the planets. But again, when this interplanetary Elon Musk Mars thing comes into place, I am always reminded by what Yosha said in one of his podcasts that I was watching. I don't remember which one. Or I think it was a tweet where he says that, in order for us to become an interplanetary civilization, firstly, the first step is to save what we have right now, which is this Earth.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like,
it's almost like God, it's almost like you're gonna try to rearrange the global economic policy, and you can't even clean your fucking room. It's like that. It's like we're gonna go we're gonna leave here and somehow be good elsewhere, and we can't even stop this shit from burning the fuck down,
but
even
how
though
is
it's
it
like
human nature to be both like blessed and chaotic, to have those two polar sides? So human emotion isn't bad and good, and angry and content, whatever. Human emotion is a spectrum. It's a scale. That's how I see it.
mm,
And it's not only emotion, can be anything. Even behavior, you can be creative and even say behavior. But most of the things in our life are operating on a degree, a scale, a range, whatever you want to call
yeah,
it, synonyms for it. And of course, these scales and ranges and everything have two polar sides, which is extremism, which is something that we were talking about before, right? Right wing, left wing, extreme.
yeah, yeah.
Then there is, which is far right, far left. Then you come into right, left. Then you come into center right, center left. And then you come into center. So everything, and this is again, I mentioned the book Kabbalion before. That book talks about six principles, universal, and this was by this Egyptian god back in the day, way back in the day. His name was Hermes Trismegistus, and he came out with six. I'm pretty sure six universal principles, and they were polarity, vibration, rhythm, just these not mundane things, but these very earthly and physical things in life. And what I got to understand from the aspect of polarity is that we as humans are capable of both. Let's just use the terms right and left abstractly. We're both capable of position A and position B. But it is really the in between that we're trying to tap into.
Yeah, I just
Extremism happens because of a certain in a political sense. Extremism happens when let's say the right, let's say left now, let's say the left wing feels that the people who are on left, not far left, are on left, aren't being liberal enough. So we, as a far left, we're gonna go and be hyper liberal, if that's a word, hyper liberal. Same goes for the far right. If they think that the right wing, you can count Douglas Muir in there, brilliant guy. Brilliant guy. If you
Mr.
want to
Douglas, right?
research Douglas Muir, and he's on the right wing or center right, something like that. So now you have far right, and they are observing that the right wing is kind of favoring into what the center and the left are kind of assimilating into this left and the right, bringing them together. That's when the extremism on the right side is like, no, we have to become more conservative. Pro-guns Americans, we're Americans, we're this is our land, and what is happening, all of the Trump stuff and all of those far right extremist values.
I'm
So
familiar with all that stuff.
you're American, so hey, you see that more than even in India, dude. Even in India, it's I would say that everyone's becoming too sensitive all around the globe, be it left wing, right wing, center, whatever. Everyone's becoming too sensitive. But it has a good element to it that people who are being bullied before are not being treated the same way that they used to be treated as. But and also that at the same time, it has different negatives to it.
As all things, yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
think that the thing that makes it insane that I mean, several things make it insane, but when it starts to become this sort of in the same way that a panic attack is like this negative feedback loop, just reverberating neurosis. It's like when you have two poles, which are millions of people, defining, identifying themselves as the opposite of those that they hate, which are the most extreme examples of those, which doesn't actually reflect most people, but the internet brings us a constant stream of the most extreme people. The person who's most loose-lipped, who's most unhinged, who's most, and then you can see that, and you'd be like, that's what that is, and then you define yourself by its opposite. And yeah, the extremities of left and right wing in America get increasingly insane, and right now, at this point, it's like there's some really cartoonish examples of that, and they're absurd, and it's so clear that it's someone that's just really unwell. To me, I observe someone who's like, yeah, if you really had a sense of having a fulfilling life and identity, you wouldn't have so much time and mental emotional real estate to be identifying as the opposite of those examples of that which walks the earth that you hate, and just how empty that is, that like, what I am, not what they are. And then so it just gets, so it gets further and further from anyone's center. Like nobody is experiencing a center. They're just, fuck those people. And I'm being vague and not sounding bad, because I got, and most of the friends I'm in a milieu of, like, my community is, but I wouldn't even say anymore that it's largely left. It's almost like because there's so many people now that say, like, God, man, that's like, there's so much knee-jerk leftist thinking, but there's also a ton of people who are saying that now in close quarters. But it is scary to see that there's people scared to talk.
You could say the spectrum is lucid at this point.
Is what?
The spectrum of the political spectrum is lucid at this point.
Lucid. Oh, aware of itself. Yeah. And it was so the center that I think of now, when I think of a center, I don't think of like being in the Goldilocks zone between left and right extremities. I think of just, hey, fucking, of course, both of these considerations are going on in my mind. They totally are. And I lean left because I have a bend. I have a bend on. I mean, I'm going to get into the nuts and bolts of things, but I just like, wouldn't it be better if there was less, if we could find out what we could do governmentally to curtail? There's always going to be desperation, but can we, since we have so much like absurd, like, and it's sometimes pretty grotesque abundance being concentrated to a small amount of people, like, could we figure out how to maybe scale back the fucking, like, the just desperation and depravity? There are things that I would be down with implementing that are like, like, I think UBI is fucking inevitable. I think it's just how much overwhelming human suffering is it going to take to get to the point where it's like, hey, the robots are doing all the jobs now, and we've got people, and people need some sort of sustenance. And
you were talking about the center thing, right? Reminded me of how famously Brett Weinstein did this article of unity, where he tried to bring the left wing and the right wing together to come and bridge the gaps.
Unity Party.
What?
The Unity Party thing? I was down with that.
Yeah, articles of unity, and in Twitter banned the account. So it's as if, now this is going to sound like a conspiracy, but it's as if the political authority does not want a congruence between the left and the right. I think
what
they're
was
afraid
the
of the
reasoning
center.
for that was given? Like, what was the official? How did that account get banned? That's because that is uncannily conspiratorial. What the fuck? And I'm not a conspiracy leaning person. When something seems like too dramatically evil, I'm like, come on, there's got to be a thing. Because mainly I observe a world of humans, and like most of the things that I say, I like when I dig deep, usually I find like, oh man, that's a human problem. Everything.
I don't know. I think I remember seeing that the account has been suspended because someone reported it, and they never got the account back. So that's somehow pointing to the, not a fact but a hypothesis, that maybe the people in authority of within the political realm are trying as far as possible to not make a center, because the center is going to be the peaceful aspect of it.
and would be the people and would be like so the how much do you know about some of these farmer protests and how
In
much
India,
India and wasn't this is how much is it's a Scandinavian country that was doing it too. I'm out of the loop right now of that. But there's some inspiring things happening, right? Of like people power actually showing that it's like people have power.
yeah, so I have very limited knowledge of it because I was out of India at that point. But from what I know or what I've heard or what I think, is that there were different farmer protests, and they were pressuring the government for certain thing that they wanted, certain right, I guess. And yeah, they were able to successfully do that through the use of not only protests, physical protests, but also social media. Um, exploding the social media with, oh, hashtags, and we need to do this, we need to do that. Then there were a lot of celebrities who signed, all of these, what do you call them when you're signing a paper for something to pass, whatever. All of these celebrities, these huge celebrities, in this region of Punjab, because that's where the whole farmer thing was going on. They started advocating for it. Then other people from the industry started talking about it, and because of the pressure, so much pressure, and the protests, the physical protests, the intensity of that, ultimately the government had to give up, and they were like, no, we're gonna withdraw the policy that we wanted to impose. So it was almost as if, in a very minute way, what happened to Louis XVI in France. Not overthrowing the government, but making sure that the government knows that people is what makes the government. People
Mhm.
is what makes democracy.
So it's the Dutch now, the Netherlands, and 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 it does seem, and I guess I'll start tracking this heavily now. That what do you think about like the green movement and the what do you think about climate change? Really, give it to me.
Oh, it's happening. It's been happening for a really good amount of time. It was ignored at first. Like, perfect example right now is the UK heat wave, right? They have, let me check the temperature of right now here. So here it's 28 degrees because it's cloudy, right? Usually it's 35 degrees to 40 degrees here in New Delhi in the afternoon. And now the same temperature is in the UK, and UK is a very rainy, I would say 21 degrees Celsius, 21 degrees to 18. That's their summer or whatever. Now their summer is not 18, 21 degrees Celsius. It's actually 35 and 40. And people are saying that it's a heat wave, but again, this heat wave is happening out of nowhere. No weather, forecast, whatever. They couldn't predict that this was going to happen. They knew that something was happening because the temperature was increasing, but they had no clue. And boom, 35 degrees 40. I was making a joke the other day on Twitter. I was like, hey Britishers, hey colonizers, enjoy.
Mhm.
Enjoy the temperature that we go through every day. And yeah, I think it's a real concern. And I think another component of it is in the Antarctica, where the icebergs are melting at a crazy rate. We're having polar bear almost, near to extinction. uh, we see that every summer the temperature goes up. And every summer, at least what I've noticed here in India and also in Israel, that the summers are becoming longer and the winters are becoming shorter. So the summer would start somewhere in between or at the end of March, and it would last up to August, September now, maybe even October, and then November, December, January, and February, which is like what, 4 months, are the only winter months now. And this wasn't the case back in the day. This was not the case. We didn't have so many summer months. We had equal amount of summer months and equal amount of winter months where we had spring and fall in between. So these very obvious changes that we are observing is is a conclusion that, hey, climate change is real and we need to do something about it. And specifically with all the cars and the emissions and pollution and whatnot, like, we are aware of our own capacity of destructing this entire earth that we call our home.
Now,
We,
what would you suggest to do?
there are people who are saying we go to the green, we opt for greener ways of um, maintaining the earth, paper bags instead of plastic bags, and
That shit's
or
all just seems obvious to me of just being less fucking filthy. But in terms of emissions, it's not like you could stop all the cars, and that's not the main contributor, right? It's fucking industrial fucking smokestack fucking pumping stuff fucking 24/7. And
So in developing countries, right? In developing countries, India is one of them. In developing countries, there's cars, heavy emissions, heavy pollution, because again, there's the GDP is low, the economy is not that good, and when you are surrounded in these kind of situations, no one's gonna go. When I can buy a car, let's say for hypothetical situation, for 1 rupee, I can go and buy a car with, heavy pollution, whatnot. Why the fuck would I go and buy an electric car for 5 rupees when I know that the places that you charge your electric car is only one? There's only one in the city. This is what is happening in these developing countries. Now, the developed countries, of course, you guys are opting for Teslas and
I see way
whatnot.
more Teslas on the road now.
Yeah, which is good for you guys, but it's ultimately, and this is what Huxley also says in his Berkeley speech, this is why it blows my fucking mind, that this developing countries are going to be the ones that actually really affect the global warming, the way the earth fruitions in the future. That developing countries, because of the poverty, because poverty is going to increase and increase and increase, the gap is going to increase, richer are going to get richer, poorer are going to get poorer, there's no balance, there's nothing, and all of these things is what is destroying our ecosphere or earth.
Yeah. And then that can also be used to as an argument of like you want poor people to freeze and bake and starve because ultimately when people like when the most like tiny fucking worldview like super just like Starbucks liberal person talks about like just stop all the fossil fuels. I bought a Tesla. Stop it all. Look, look, it's that easy. Just stop, you know? But then you see something like fucking massive buildings burning, pumping fucking hours and hours of black smoke into the sky. And, like that's got to be a contributing factor too. And then like one volcano, does one volcano measure against a year of every car on the planet? Like one fucking. I
They
mean,
say that creation and destruction go together, but it seems to me that creation is leading to destruction in the 21st century.
yeah, I mean, well, it's like I bring these things up, and I don't have the answer of how to switch over, but like when I see that, like I was reading a thing of the about the the Dutch farmers protests, and like, it seems like there's a lot of pushback against what's being framed as the green revolution. It's for our own sake. This is the actual effort to combat global warming. And of course, there was always going to be a not necessarily sinister, but greedy, slithery side to that, because every time there's a crisis, there's people trying to capitalize on a crisis. So of course there's a I find it less shadowy word than shadowy, but there's always going to be a shadowy element to every movement that gains a lot of steam. Like, like you're saying, the stamping out of a movement towards unity in America, like that. Like, I don't want to think that, because that means, but I've seen things myself. I went to Standing Rock. Do you know about that? I'd like to, I could just inform you of that, like with the, I'll just send you stuff about it. But long story short, there was a pipeline that was being put in North Dakota in America, and then there was uh, there was uh, the Standing Rock Sioux tribe, the Native American tribe that were just initially it was just them, like, fuck you, this is our sacred special land. And but what it sparked was like all these indigenous tribes, and then just like a ton of fucking people, and just like suburbanites, just like fucking like lots of Americans then coming in. There's like just but the way the media coverage of that was silenced and stamped out was sinister, was like uncanny. And so my friends had an event to raise money for it, and instead of just wiring the money, I think I personally was like, we can't just send this money, because I'm not assuming that it's going to get to where we want to. We should literally drive there and give it to a person's hands who's clearly putting effort in, that is moving the needle in that microcosm, at least, because at that point I was still I was coming into reality, but now I'm becoming a stereotypically, like, I'm 33, about to be 34, and reality is pretty fucking heavy, and I am not naive anymore. But even then, I was not naive enough to be like, no, like, the reason why we need to go there and give this to somebody is because at the very least we can give it to somebody and make somebody more comfortable who's being brave, and doing things for people. And we were actually able to do that, put like cash in the hands of somebody who was like going to get people boots, supplies necessary for people who are like standing out there. This winter in North Dakota is, you haven't experienced like winter. This is winter as fuck. This is like, it's so cold. It's so cold at night. And we got to have the experience of sleeping in a teepee and struggle cuddling for survival, like in this. And there was people who were living there for a long time, and everybody, but like there was this massive congregation of indigenous tribes from Canada, that's very inspiring to see, like all of these people who, their common thread, who even like had differences in the past, coming together under like, well, we actually give a fuck about nature, and give a fuck about, and obviously these are the ways of speaking about things in English, but like, because we say like the environment. And from what I understand, people who lived off the land and lived in relationship with the environment, as we say, was like, to have a word for that, as opposed to just, like, give a fuck about like anyway, the goal was stop this pipeline. There's so many different times where these pipelines burst and fucking and fuck up the water. And it did. They actually, it did. This pipeline did end up being put in and did end up erupting. Like, it's just so. But anyway, what we witnessed there, like, was a tremendous militarized police effort, and with mercenaries and with unlit aircraft flying over the shit, like that's a crime to have an unlit aircraft flying over, and like, and just just things that I would have thought would be would write off as conspiracy nonsense. Get to like eyewitness, like the massive amount of effort to stamp this shit out. And that kind of broke me in a lot of ways, of just like of my hope. Not like broke me, down. I was like, but just like, oh, okay, that's tremendous resistance there. And now I'm kind of coming back around to, though, because I keep seeing more and more that the people who are okay, I have to, I can't help but switching that. Like the military industrial complex came to my work today. I work at this service job, which is like teaching people to throw axes, and like, and not just training them, but helping them have the most fun and keeping them safe as they throw axes, sometimes drunkenly. And there was this group of people that came through today, and they make weapons systems. They're like literally friendly employees of what could be called the military industrial complex. Like they were talking about, they make remote controlled gun turrets. And so they were coming from, I think, Alabama, and they were, just doing this contract of coming to Michigan to build weapons here. And they're sweethearts. They're just sweet people who they're totally nice. They tip me really heavily too, and on company money too. I got tipped heavily. I got well paid by the military industrial complex. That, because you say like the military industrial complex, and it's like that is a very dark force in this world. That is a really disgusting. We were talking about addiction, I think, off camera earlier, but somebody who was a nice moral person could be like stealing to sell things for this drug that they can't help it. The same thing happens with collectives and macrocosms. Something fucked up. And so I'm saying, like, the positive thing that I see about when those things happen, it's not a bunch of evil, I'm so fucking awful. It's this very unlucid thing. Usually there's a bunch of people being like, well, this is necessary, or people just not thinking about it. I feel like I started going on this STEM thought earlier, that, I have a close relation in my life now who's a nurse in the operating room. She was just texting me today, like, we're doing an above the knee amputation, and she'll just constantly, every day, there's somebody getting organs removed. There's somebody getting their fucking limbs removed. There's every single day, just always in the presence of that. So you develop a sort of, you can call it a numbness, but you can also just like, it's every day this is happening. And then I know people, more so I listen to people talk who are that numb to like the geopolitical chessboard. They're always hearing about this many 100 people, and some of them children, being bombed this day, and that and just always aware of the atrocities going on this planet, and they achieve, that sounds positive, but they get to a level of numbness about it, and then they're able to talk about it very clearly, because they're no longer horrified by each individual thing any one of these experiences, if witnessed, would just crush a lot of people who think that reality is, like, and I'm getting to that point of like, I don't want to be numb, and like I said, I lean towards, I have a level of knee-jerk compassion, and I want to continue to have that, and I want things to be as best as they can be for as many people as possible. But then other times, I notice times where I lucidly go to like, well, you know what, kiddo, you're behind the castle walls, and it's nice behind the castle walls, isn't it? And would you really venture out beyond the castle walls, or are you just aware enough to know that? And I don't want to be that. I don't want to live that. I don't want to live that way of like, well, I'm safe behind the castle walls. But also, there's a part of me that, no, I think that we can, even just by, we're becoming so much more aware to get to a positive about a truly positive, like the amount of awareness in like the regular everyday person, I'm sure it's the same in India as here, is like there's so many more people who are so much more aware of the world now over the last 2 years. It's truly exponential, it seems. I mean, you still fucking find zombified mall walkers for sure, and then people who their world is such a tiny narrow slice of their corner of the world, but there's so much more awareness, and with awareness comes a percentage of people who give a fuck, and then a percentage of those who do things, and then a percentage of those who do things with their hearts unclouded by hatred, sort of shit. You know, I'm not hearing your audio.
The Okay, it's happening because of this congruence, this awareness thing. And you said 2 years back. Let's go all the way back to pandemic. When the pandemic happened, it definitely changed a lot of people's perspective about certainty, uncertainty, how the world actually, and by world I mean Gaia, the Earth, the Mother Earth, actually functions or exists. And it was because of this disturbance, because of this discongruence that happened. Now, it could be scientifically made virus or a bat made virus, who cares? But it did shake the world up, and it did make people realize that, hey, we need to be aware at a very collective level. There has to be some sort of a collective consciousness.
Yeah.
And it sounds quite spiritual and esoteric, but it does have some good implications of it across all fields, and specifically studies about the nature of the world and nature of human condition in relation to the world. So it's usually the disturbances, the discongruence, that raises the bars of awareness in people, because until and unless you're stuck by something, you don't even observe what's around you.
Yeah, and I know people who like, yeah, the 3 people most close to me, I think, may live their entire lives behind the castle walls, and I can have moments where I think of the problems in their lives as being so tragic, and then other moments where I'm like, oh my god, I can. And that's the thing. Switching to gratitude thing. This sounds like a hippy dippy concept, but it's a really fucking, it's really actually pretty really practical thing. Don't use your brain to focus on what is awful, especially if reality is a dream. To be like, because what I notice is it's endless in either direction. Like I can paint a horrific hellscape, and I can have heaven on earth, and maybe a bit of both at different times is the way. But in terms of moving the needle of like saving the world sort of shit, um,
What do you mean by saving the world?
yeah, I don't know. That's the thing. I don't know anymore because I don't know. Let's not fuck the place up so bad that we don't have a place. Let's not do that. Let us not that. But
Mhm.
in terms of like, is the most optimal way for things to be, like back to like Brave New World. Like, are we going to end suffering? How could we do that without ending freedom? Like, are we going to end? There has to be people being free to fuck it up for themselves. But
I, we can never end suffering, just like we can never end happiness. It's all a spectrum. We can never end emotions. Emotion is probably the most human thing about a human person. It makes the human a human. I mean, why are we trying to make robots have emotions, have affective mechanisms? It's only because we know that what makes a consciousness, or what element of a consciousness, and what makes a human, a sentient, is because of this affective mechanism, which is our emotions. So there can never be any end of suffering, and there can never be any end of happiness. It coexists.
yeah, which is what when I say, like, especially if reality is a dream, like, and these very very smart people who know about the brain and also computer science telling me that, like, what was it that Yosha said about time? That was a really great definition of time. What was the definition of time? You posted it the other day. time is the rate of change as observed by an observer?
That's Lucha's
What the
brain.
fuck? Wait,
He's
I got
on
it
a
right here. I got it right here. As I understand time, it's the rate of change in the environment of an observer as observed by that observer.
yeah.
So a dream. So a hallucination.
Yeah, he's on another level entirely. I have to like really think about his tweets and just be like, wow,
Try to have a
and
good life.
fit.
Try to have a good life.
Yeah,
Try to have a good life and try to be helpful. The way I observe being helpful and actually moving the needle now is I'm going to live, God willing, hopefully, a few decades. And what I've noticed from age 20 to 30, which I am now soon to turn 34, is that between 20 and 30, I did, not to brag, I could also fucking really lay out all the ways in which I fucked up and failed. I actually have more to say and spend a lot of time ruminating about all the ways I fucked up and failed. But I had a tremendous amount of positive impact when the parts of myself that are helpful and not even necessarily compassionate, philanthropic in any way, but there's I did have positive impact across that decade, from showing up consistently to certain people and in certain spaces and stuff, and um and so to do that across time and to like, I think it's really really important getting people together, and that's something that I was doing a lot between that age 20 to 30, and I would like to do more of that. Getting conversations going, planting, thought seeds with people. And I don't know what the next decade is going to do, but I know I'm like very much on the precipice of very much leveling up, in some way, but also kind of leveling down. Like I love that. Is it a Carl Jung quote? I think it is. Most people never find God because they never look low enough.
Lowen.
Low enough. Yeah.
Wow.
That you never find that, like, because you're we're trying to scale intimacy and perhaps like just having like, and I'm very in tune with that now of like, well, maybe it would be nice just to have a nice little life, maybe 12 friends, maybe like just a handful of people who know me well and that I can actually give a good amount of attention to, as opposed to this like always looking off to some distant or thinking about moving the needle in some big way, you know. Um, especially if reality's a dream, then do I fucking want to spend this time? And especially like seeing some of these people who have massive signals who are miserable. They have what I thought I wanted, which was, and I would no longer say that I want fame, but I do see how it would be useful if I'm still interested in moving the needle to have a stronger signal and be able to just do more. Mainly for me, it's travel, but also I love God, and I haven't even experienced like wild, um, uh, obnoxious levels of what it is to be the opposite of uh, anonymity. You know, I have a few places where I have the experience of being recognized for this or that, like very niche spaces. But to be able to be able to be no one amongst a lot of people is something that I'm sure I totally grasp how that would become a bane of your existence, to not be able to be no one, because it's so great to be no one, to know that I could travel now and I could be absolutely no one in everywhere but a few very niche spaces. I hope you get to go to Burning Man in the next few years. I'd like to help with that. I think
I really want to go. I think Yosha is going.
really.
Yeah, I think I read a tweet or some.
If he doesn't have, I'm sure he has all sorts of speaking arrangements, but I can help him get the fucking on stage at Center Camp a bunch. I would love to hear Yoshi talk at Burning Man.
If I yeah, Burning Man is something that I definitely want to go. You know, there's in Israel we have a ripoff of Burning
Yeah.
Man. It
Yeah. Yeah.
happens in the
Mid-burn.
Tibet. Yeah, never went there. Seemed too crazy at that time. I was just like 18, and it was like, okay, Burning Man. It was too crazy. But no, Burning Man is something that I definitely do want to go to at some point in my life. I like the concept behind it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the most human thing I've ever experienced. Very admittedly human. Very admittedly human.
Is it
Yeah.
literally as crazy as people say it is?
I mean, people probably exaggerate and under and say underwhelmingly accurate things about it's. I mean, it's fucking 70,000 people in the desert. It's like, here's the thing about it is that it at some point during the week, if you spend the whole week, you're fucked in terms of like staying comfortable mentally, hygienically. You just have to admit that you're covered in dust. You've been interacting with way too many hundreds of people every day. You're not sleeping right. You're not. And you're just in a constant state of like which you at some point have to choose to let go and choose like a blissful sort of insanity, you know. Um, and then you're also amongst people who are like staying in their little bubble, and a lot of people don't like that. That there's like the like super wealthy people in like really nice RVs and stuff like that who don't have to have the full experience of being. But there's just thousands of people who at some point you become in a for me it's always in a very good way unhinged, and then some really human stuff starts happening. And it's just really human. It's really human, and it's really human, and even in like when thinking about things in terms of socio-political chessboard and that it's like here's a bunch of people, some of which are very highly resourced, and what are we doing? We're going to the middle of a fucking arid, very difficult terrain desert and making a bunch of beautiful art that costs hundreds of thousands of dollars and then burning it. And you could say that it is the most hedonic, wasteful thing possible, and also an argument can be made that it is the most meaningful thing that is happening on the planet in that 7 days because of the congregation of so many minds, so many people. Like there's so many stories of like companies that began and things, but and all under this idea of like decommodification and being not like it, but its own little government. It's its own little. I mean, it's so human.
It's a barter system, right?
Huh?
It's a barter system, right? There's no money.
No, not even that. It's supposed to be gifting. But
Oh.
obviously, there's people that there's sale of things. There's people who aren't with the program. There's people, but there's a lot of it does adhere to, the principles and which are radical decommodification, which is don't do capitalism, cover your logos and stuff. Don't be selling your shit. Don't be fucking, actively networking for your thing, though a lot of that is going on. It's so, it's so meaningful. And so there's such a great case of the paradoxy of it and even the downright hypocrisy of it. It's so human. It's so human. It's so fucking human. It's radically inclusive, though. It's only people who are able to fucking have so much, who are able to get to that desert, both financially, medically. It's so human. It's so in a not and to me, not in a naive way. It's so human, and it's like really confrontational of like, this is what we are. This is what we are.
Yeah, maybe one day I'll go.
I hope to be able to help. I mean, I can make it a lot of it, but anyway, you'd love, and then you'd have lots of opportunities to talk there and meet such interesting people in it. That it's. Why did I bring up Burning Man? Because of, I don't know. Why did I bring up Burning Man? I'm thinking about that now. And that's the thing that's like, it's about to be the whole month of August is preparing. And then the whole month of September is usually like kind of reeling, processing, fucking coming back to sanity from that, which is a reason why I would like to take a year off one of these years. I've gone fucking the last 10 years, except for the pandemic years, which now that seems like truly over for me. But man, it's not over for the world, is it? That's still definitely doing its thing, isn't it?
It is.
I sound like an ignorant ass fuck right now, but I kind of have been. I've been kind of an ignorant ass fuck about it for a bit now.
Who isn't? At some point, everyone does that.
Being an ignorant ass fuck about things.
Yeah, human emotions are a spectrum. At some point, it's gonna
Yeah.
go there.
I'm pretty realistic about that. We were talking about having a positive impact and stuff. Is like the only that it's not that it's all that's possible, is that I lose the most important part of myself. If I'm about having a massive impact, I will lose the part of myself that I love most, which is that I am a sincere little old me person. And I'd have to develop and continue to add to this character that works and that either avoids controversy or capitalizes on it. And I never want to become somebody who does the thing that it's almost like you got to do now, where you just leverage controversy and conflict on the internet, particularly. And I don't want to drink that poison. However, it's just so fucking, it's abundant right now. Yeah, just fucking, there's so many things that are just like, God, man, what are we wasting our lives with this? Because it's so sticky to me. It's so and I could have just like little internet things can just be, they stick to me. I hate it. I use that word. I hate it. I hate that shit. But I love being talking with people and being sincere and being curious and admitting that there's so much that I don't fucking know. But I feel like we've talked. I don't have to say I feel. We talked for an hour and a half.
That's a good amount. This was a really good podcast.
It was enjoyable. Yep. That's all I'm going for these days. But also, I want to fucking save the world. I want to move the needle. I want to, yeah. Why the fuck not? I mean, if I can, if I see it, if I get in it, if there's a breakaway, sure. Let's save the world. Let's keep running up that hill. Let's save the fucking world. Yeah. Perhaps by destroying it. Perhaps that's how we save the world. We fucking eradicate.
Destruction and creation goes together.
Yeah. Well, I hope I wish you a very lovely evening. I'm gonna switch into being a person post work mode. It was good to have an evening podcast with you, but I don't encourage your pulling all nighters all the time.
Oh yeah. I know.
All right. Well, I wish you a happy reality, Sanj, and
She's a happy reality as well.
all right. Good night.
Take care.